Ric Flair, are you on the line?
I am, young man. How are you, Dave?
Hey, I'm doing really good, Rick. Thanks very much for doing the show, and I don't even know how to start to give you an introduction. I haven't even tried because Ric Flair, I got to say, I would say the greatest wrestler that's ever lived. I mean, and that's not, I would never say that about anybody else.
Well, you saying that means enough. You've as I've told you many times in the past, you've always paid me more respect than anybody else I've ever known in my life, and I appreciate it. You've always put it in print as well as said it, so no introduction needed. I'm actually honored to be on your show. I didn't know how big this thing had gotten, and I'm glad you guys called me. I'm glad to be on it. I'm glad to be home to be able to be on it. How about that?
Rick, why don't you catch everyone up on what you're doing right now in this kind of hiatus period, I guess.
Well, actually, today I went and watched my son try out for the wrestling team, and I watched my daughter try out for the basketball team. So I'm doing what I like doing a lot, and I spend a lot of time with my kids. I'm going to get real involved again. I actually have taken 6 months kind of away, not away from my businesses, but the gyms are pretty much self-manage themselves, and I've got a real good, very well-structured company in place that runs them for me, but I'm going to aggressively get back in the market. I'm going to build a new one in Asheville in the next 6 months, and I'm going to build one in Greenville, North Carolina, if we can ever get the water dried up from the hurricanes. I've got 2 new leases and 2 new locations, and I'm going to get real involved in my businesses again, and as I always have in the past, be really focused on what my kids are doing, and they're both at that age now where they're being challenged, and I'm the kind of father, I guess, whether it's good or bad, that wants to make sure that they have all the tools and are prepared for what's in front of them, and I have a lot of fun doing that. So I basically how I spend my time. I work on my clubs, and then I take the time in the afternoon to go see my kids compete in their respective sports. So that's what I'm doing. I'm not doing anything with professional wrestling. I've got some appearances lined up this month that are, I guess, related to professional wrestling because they came through the company. But that's about it. As far as I know, I'm going to be off until sometime in January. So I really, to be honest with you, Dave, I've tried to forget the last year again. I mean, not the last year, but say the last 6 months.
Now, how was your daughter's wedding? Because that was just a couple of weeks back, right?
It was phenomenal. It was actually 5 weeks ago. It was great. It was in Minneapolis, and they had about 250 people. She married a real nice guy from Minneapolis, a former goaltender for a college team in Minnesota. He got drafted by the Rangers and spent about 6 months in the East Coast Hockey League, which is down here where I live, and decided he wanted to get back to the real world. He's got a degree in business management. He's actually working for me right now.
Oh, really?
They moved down here, and she's a nurse. She graduated from nursing school in May, and she's got a job with a company called AmeriCare. And gosh, it's moving by too fast for me. I got two of the birds put away, David and Megan. I got two more little birds to take care of. 2 of them are on their own now.
You know, one of the things about it's kind of like one of these ironic stories, and I don't think this has been brought up in too often. I think some people are aware of this. It's almost like, the stories about the guy who ends up being a star in the NBA and actually never played in high school or was cut from high school. Rick, when you first went to wrestling school, didn't the first year you actually quit before you went back a second time?
Oh, you talking about with Vern?
With Vern Gagne.
I quit 3 times. He came over the 3rd time and 2nd time and dragged me out my yard and literally, beat the crap out of me. Said, you quit college, you quit everything you've done so far in life, you're not quitting this. And
really, because it's.
I mean, I tell this story all the time. Vern was a very unique guy. He still is. He's a class act, but Vern Gagne was a very, very, very tough guy. I don't think anybody realized just how tough a guy he was physically and mentally. And of course, he's was an Olympic caliber wrestler. He was an alternate on the 48 team. So Vern was a 3-time Big Ten champion or 4-time, whatever he was. And he beat Big Bill Miller, in the Big Ten meet, 30 seconds. You know about that, right?
I didn't know about that, but I know they were contemporaries.
He Bill Miller in 30 seconds. One of those deals where Bill shot in on Vern, and Vern, did something quick to him and pinned him in 30 seconds, which was probably, God rest his soul, the worst thing that ever happened to Bill Miller's life. Because Vern and Bill, I guess, were side by side for years in the business. So, but that's a legendary story in Minnesota. But yeah, I quit. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I thought I was, going to be like Dick the Bruiser, the Crusher, and make an interview and have a beer. I had no idea what was going on. When I was on the first day, and it was Missouri, Cosgrove, myself, Jim Brunzell, Bob Ruggers, Ken Patera, and Greg Gagne. And, God, it was a nightmare. I had no idea. We ran 2 miles, and I weighed about 300 pounds that day. We ran 2 miles out in the cornfield. He trained us in his barn, and he had some property out in didn't live there, but had property out in Wayzata, Minnesota. We ran 2 miles. This is November now, after the Olympic Games, and then went in the barn and did 500 free squats. It took me about an hour to do 500 free squats. I mean, it was ridiculous. But he wouldn't let us quit. Then we did push-ups and sit-ups, and then put us in referee's position and jumped on us.
We've got to go to a break in just a second. But one thing I wanted to ask you, a lot of times, like when it comes to wrestling school stories, you hear about guys, like quitting, but very rarely, I never heard of someone going like, come back. I mean, did he see something in you, and it was just like, hey, I'm not letting this guy not get in this business?
No, I think he saw something in me as a person. I mean, Greg and I had been friends, and I think that Vern, when I went to see him, it's funny you're asking me this because I think about this once in a while. I had to talk him into letting me come out. You know what I mean? In other words, I had to talk him into. I mean, think about it. It was Bob Ruggers, who had played 10 years of NFL football. It was Ken Patera, Olympic athlete. It was Jim Brunzell, who'd been a collegiate athlete, for 4 years. It was Greg, who'd, competed in college. I'm not sure to what level he went, but he went from Minnesota to Wyoming. And it was Cosgrove, Missouri, who was a, Olympic caliber wrestler, So I kind of had to talk him into being, and let me in. I think he just made up his mind that I think he saw some ability, but we really didn't back then. You have to remember we didn't do anything, but we didn't know. I didn't know until 5 minutes. I mean, I knew in my mind, but nobody ever told me what was going on until 5 minutes before I went in my first match. To 5 minutes before I went in the ring with my first match with George Gadasky.
Really?
Yeah, nobody. We never talked about that. We always just, walk around and look at each other and say, what's going on, but it was never something that was discussed. It just wasn't back then. Vern, and then we learned, we learned the fundamentals, how to fall on our back, headlock takeover stuff. Well, he didn't work on series. There was no high spots, nothing about punching or kicking. It was just all about wrestling. Not amateur wrestling, but professional wrestling. But a lot of amateur wrestling stuff that he always based that off to, that was the reason we were there. That's why professional wrestling was successful, because they patted themselves after amateur wrestling. Vern had a funny way of teaching the business. But it was, it was great. He had Joe Scarpello, he had Don Morocco was there, Billy Robinson. I was around some great guys and some great talent.
We're going to have Ric Flair back here. He's actually switching from cell phone to the home, so he should be on like literally momentarily. Before Rick gets back, I guess I'll answer some emails or make some comments on emails that I've just sent through on stuff that we have actually talked about. Where was this one? It was Randy Rhea writes in that Vince McMahon was at ringside for the Austin Dude Love match at the Unforgiven pay-per-view last year. I remember that. The Austin Goldust match on Raw the next night, at ringside for many more Austin Championship matches, including Austin Rock match on Raw November 16th, 1998. And the Austin Rock match at WrestleMania. There may have been more, but I'm not sure. It's hilarious, that's right. Even the WrestleMania match, in the morass of all these matches that we see, has been blurred. But the only match that he's actually really been at ringside was in Montreal, according to WWF Story last night. Daryl Surratt also says, regarding Vince being at ringside, you're correct, he's been at ringside, obviously. He also recalls Dude Love against Steve Blackman, where Vince called for the bell. I remember that now. I remember that exact same finish. That's right. So anyway, there's probably about a half dozen, if not more, matches that Vince McMahon was at ringside spoofing the Survivor Series, other than just last night. This comes from, actually, I'm not sure who this comes from, but Walmart has pulled the Al Snow action figures from its shelf. It's a story that just ran this morning on the AP Wire. A doll depicting a WWF wrestler carrying around a woman's head has been pulled from Walmart shelves following a complaint that it makes light of violence against women. Anyway, I don't really want to. We got Rick back on the line, so let's get to Rick. Rick, how are you?
Hey, Dave, here I am.
Okay, great.
I'm resituated.
Okay, great. We're going to take some phone calls right now. We've got like a million email questions as well.
Okay.
Leon in Brooklyn, you're first up with the Nature Boy. How you doing?
Good afternoon, Dave. Good afternoon, champ.
Good, sir. How are you?
I'm fine. I have a question. I'd like to know, can you talk a little bit about that night in Greenville and when you came back and you got a tremendous response from the fans? I was wondering, can you talk a little bit about how you felt that night?
Well, it's funny. It probably was. I told somebody the other day that probably was the most memorable. But it's funny because it wouldn't have been. It wouldn't have been prior to that. But that's probably the most memorable night of my career. In terms of, sometimes you need a boost in life. We all go through the ups and downs, and you lose confidence in yourself. There's realism in life for everybody. At every level. I can assure you of that. And I don't know why, because I had so many problems with Eric. I don't know why he gave me Greenville to come back. Maybe that was, maybe he didn't realize what would happen there. I felt like it would be very impacting for me to come back in a area that I had wrestled in for a long time. But Greenville was a town that I must have wrestled in. I figured it out one time about 1,100 times in my career. So it was a huge moment. I didn't think they'd react like that, but it was really it actually overwhelmed me. And it'll probably go down as of right now as the biggest night of my wrestling career. Not wrestling, actually, not wrestling, but I mean impacting in terms of what it meant to me.
I'm a big fan of the original Horsemen. I was wondering, has WCW ever thought about releasing on video some of the group's major matches and angles?
I don't know if they have or not. I'm not even sure who owns all that. I think they probably do own that because they would have bought it from Crockett. But, it's funny. The Horsemen have been – the company, I think, have downplayed the Horsemen, to the point where it's almost ridiculous. People that are experts in the wrestling field like Dave and Mark Madden, non-wrestling people that are actually experts in terms of their knowledge of statistics and popularity and reactions or whatever wrestling's based on these days. We can certainly show our mark in the business, but this company that I work for now in the last 5 years has done more to hurt the Horsemen than they have to promote them. So to say that they're going to turn out tomorrow and make the Horsemen a hot video, I don't see that happening.
But is there any chance about the former Horsemen just releasing? It seems like WCW or NWA have such great footage of the past.
I wish they'd give it to us to promote. I wish they'd give it to us to sell. I'd love to have it right now, but that won't happen either.
I would say I think your son's new gimmick looks very good. It looks like it's pretty promising.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
I'm real proud of him. He's doing a good job, and these guys are taking the time to utilize him in the right capacity, I think, and giving him a chance. I think in the future he'll have a chance to learn the things that he's asked to do before he has to do them.
And Dave, I didn't hear you before. Did you give the ratings?
The ratings won't be in until first thing tomorrow morning. There's some sort of a computer thing where some of the markets didn't get in.
Okay.
So we'll have them on the show tomorrow. But the only rating we got was ECW, which was down, 0.8.
Well, Rick, I want to say it's an honor talking to you.
Well,
You're a great wrestler, and I hope you come back pretty soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's go to Chris in Massachusetts. Are you there?
Yeah. Hi, Dave. How you doing?
I'm doing really good.
Good. Mr. Flair,
yes.
You are the man, without a doubt. I've got to say, I met you one time. Huh?
Where are you from, Chris?
Massachusetts.
Okay.
Tewksbury, Mass. I don't know if you ever do read The Observer. Maybe you won't admit to it. But actually, Dave published a letter where I really ripped WCW's treatment of you, and it was published a couple of months ago. And I have to tell you, I met you one time. I got your autograph. You're a gentleman. You are the man. And there seems to be a lot of disrespect right now in wrestling for some of the guys who really paved the way. I'm not as kind as Dave was earlier in his analysis of the Kevin Nash stuff. You've got a guy who's...
I didn't hear it. What did Dave say? You talking about what happened now? I missed it.
Well, Nash really, they joked around about burning bridges and stuff. Nash is on...
He did a Vince McMahon spoof last night on the show.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
I didn't see it. I'm sorry.
There's a complete lack of respect for, you know, just a lot of the stuff that came before. And, you know, you're a great wrestler. You're the only guy out there taking back body drops every week, and I hope that you get to come back in some capacity. Do you have any regrets over anything that's happened the last couple of years? I mean, do you wish maybe at the times when you thought, geez, maybe I should have went to the WWF? I mean, I had heard that, you know, you probably could have been the corporate champion for Vince.
Yeah, I wish. I mean, I'll be right up front with you. I wish I had gone.
Yeah.
When I had the opportunity. I don't know that I had the opportunity, but I can't go on record as saying I did. I wish that I had. And this is no offense to the people that are running the company right now, but I'm going to answer your question very directly. Let me answer three of them. First of all, it's only been probably in the last 5 years that I admitted to reading the Observer. I do read it. I'll never admit to calling Dave, but I have. No, it's funny. I do read the Observer. You know, it's not my Bible. Dave knows how I feel about it. I mean, I feel to this day, I feel funny. I don't know why, talking about the business as openly as we are, but it's something that it's a change. That, I mean, I think when I first met Dave, I didn't know who Dave was. I was riding on the car with Dave all night long talking to him about the match, and I knew that he was a friend of Brad's. But I just didn't understand who Dave was, and then when I realized, you know, and I think we've been more than friends since then. Dave, I'd say we've been actually pretty close guys.
Yeah.
Not in terms of, you know, we don't socialize. Dave's in Frisco and I'm here, but when we see each other, we're very friendly, and I have a lot of respect for what he does, because the one thing that Dave Meltzer does, and I've said it before, I get a lot of heat in several arguments with people over this. Dave is not afraid to say what he thinks. He does not ride the popular wave. If he did, I couldn't endorse his product. There are other guys out there today that ride cheap, that ride whatever the popular wave is, whether it's for the popular wave with the wrestlers, the popular wave with the fans. Dave writes, he's like Mark Madden used to be before he became a company guy. Mark, I hope you hear this. He says what he has to say, and I'm teasing Mark Madden. Mark can be pretty stiff too, but they say what they think. You know, they say what they want. They say what they think because they have an opinion of what they're watching. And I didn't know about Kevin Nash cracking on Vince, but it's funny. Last night, I'll tell you how funny the world is. Kevin Green came to my house last night. Kevin Green is third all time in sacks in the NFL, behind Reggie White, Bruce Smith, who are both defensive ends, one retired, one still active, and Kevin, as you know, broke LT's record. He sat in my house last night and told me that he came over to tell me he was going to retire. He said, Rick, I'm the only guy still playing in the NFL of the 1985 draft. I can't walk in the dressing room anymore. I have nothing in common with the guys. I see the rookies, they cry. Some of them don't ever play. Some of them don't want to play. They want the money. I mean, it's not just my business that's changed. It's sports have changed, you know. And I can't say they've changed for the better or for the worse. As a fan, they've changed for the worse. As a football fan, free agency to me has hurt football a lot. It's hurt basketball. I think anybody that watches a team and has a favorite team and they see the guys moving around, but it doesn't mean that that's wrong. That's the one thing I've learned. I can't say that they're wrong. Look at the ratings. People are watching TV, and it's given me what I'm involved in now. It's given me a whole new life. At the age of 50, I've got more notoriety now than I ever had. And I have people like you, Chris, calling on the phone saying, you know, when you're coming back. So I can't knock that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't agree with it, but I can't knock it.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't knock anything right now because it's making me a hell of a living. And, you know, I told Dave, Christ, 15 years ago, I told Dave I'd be done when I was 40. Then I told Dave 45, and just into the reference point because we talked. I said, Dave, for sure I'll be done when I'm 47. Here I'm going again, right, waiting for another run. So I don't know. I can't knock it. I can't say I agree with it, but it's hard because, as you know, if you look at everything's changing at the same time. So do I like it? I'm not crazy about it, but I can't knock it.
Chris, do you have anything else?
Well, just best of luck to you, Rick, and I've enjoyed your matches, and you know, you'll always have the respect of the hardcore fans, and
thank you.
You know, someday you'll get your just due, you know.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
I probably already have right now today.
Well, you have,
from
but
Dave and
you know,
from you and from the other fellow that called. I mean, I feel it's funny, you know, this deal with Payne Stewart. is so right there for me because you saw the comment that his wife made about he had peace with himself, felt like he'd accomplished everything there is accomplished. I was telling Kevin Green last night. Kevin was telling me ways of peace with himself. I wish I could tell you that I was. I'm at peace with everything that's going on in terms of I die tomorrow, my family taken care of, and all that stuff. But I still have that burning desire to wrestle at the top level, which this company has deprived me of doing since February again. I mean, no matter what I did, it just sat me back. If I was successful, I went backwards again. So, and I understand what's going on now. I'm talking about prior to the new regime. And that's the only reason I wish I'd gone up there if I had the opportunity, because I could have wrestled The Rock, who I think is a great guy. I could have wrestled Steve Austin, hopefully. I mean, I just would have liked to have done, for myself personally, to have been involved in the new frontier one more time.
Yeah. Well, I understand. I think it's commendable that you wanted to finish out your career in a company that, clearly at one time you carried that entire company on your back. It's too bad they couldn't reciprocate with a little more respect. That's all.
That doesn't happen in the real world. It really doesn't happen anywhere, probably, not just wrestling.
Right.
There's very few gold watches going around now.
There's something that I wanted to ask Rick in the 80s. I mean, do you look back? I mean, you had a 27-year career, just about 27 years now. So I think the anniversary would be in just a couple weeks. Do you look back and when we look at the 80s, that real big boom period in the 80s, you were working for Crockett, you were the number one guy for Crockett, yet at the same time, the real notoriety, there were all the big wrestling stories and all the big things in the era. Sort of focused more on Flair and sorry, not you, but on Hogan and to a lesser extent Piper and Savage, because you were somewhere else. You wish if I had gone there in '83, me and Hogan could have done this thing, or do you look back and just go, well, look, I was the number one guy and I wrestled, matches that were, more to, I mean, you weren't going to most likely be doing 35-minute matches in WWF no matter how good you were. And something where, I carved my legacy here, and in the long run, everyone kind of knows it anyway. I mean, how do you look back on, say, the 80s?
Well, it's funny because back then, as you know, Dave, I was running so fast and having such a good time that's one of the things that we can talk about later on. I was having such a good time. I didn't lose any sleep about what Hogan was doing at WWF. And yes, I did that. I can cover it. I had an opportunity to go a couple of times, but I never saw Randy Savage or any of those guys, especially Hogan, as even being in my league. I mean, I was around. I was, an accomplished. Or I was working on top, and those guys were breaking in. And so I didn't even consider them. I was happy for them. I didn't lose any sleep. In other words, I didn't have a burning desire to compete, to show anybody that I was better than him. I mean, Roddy Piper is one of my closest friends. I just wished him well, I was glad he was making money. We talked periodically. But along with the money those guys were making up there was a lot of stress from what I could see, because that was the first time in our business that there was a lot of stress over positioning. You know what I mean, Dave?
Yeah.
And for me, all I wanted to do every day, I mean, it's funny, I think Arn was the same way. God, if Arn Anderson and Tony Blanchard were wrestling in front of me with two good guys, I had to go out there and have a hell of a match. In my mind, I had to go out, I had the best, it was almost a rib in the business. I wasn't going to go and have not the best match of the night if I just stay out there for an hour. I mean, and a lot of guys didn't like working with me because of that. Well, I refused, but it wasn't anything that I was doing maliciously. I just refused to be to be anybody but the best I could be, regardless if I went to bed the night before or not. I just wanted to be the best, and I wanted to have the best match, But I didn't look at that as being any kind of competition with the WWF. And look back now, I mean, to have you introduce me today as the greatest wrestler in your estimation, that's a pretty nice compliment coming from you. As a guy that's had a successful publication for how many years now, Dave? 14, 15?
17.
17 years. Well, there you go. I mean, you've watched it all. You've made a living watching tapes, what you didn't see live, but watching tapes. Yeah. And it's nice to have that kind of recognition. The difference between me and Hulk Hogan, and that's funny because I get along with Hogan. We've always agreed to disagree, I think, is our relationship, is that Hogan said no and I said yes.
Yeah.
I should have said no more often.
Jeff, in San Jose, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing very good.
Yeah, Rick, what do you think of the Vince Russo philosophy of no faces or no heels? I noticed your ring style changes whenever...
Of no what?
faces and no heels.
Yeah. Gosh, what does that mean? I can't use that terminology. I didn't know that was his philosophy. Because if I watch the WWF, there's definitely a good guy and a bad guy. So I didn't know that was his philosophy.
Yeah, WCW's it's definitely the line is blending. Everyone's just kind of a personality there, and there are guys who their angles, even the one you did with the Filthy Animals,
yeah.
And then a lot of the stuff with the Revolution and different people out there. They're literally like a face spot and a heel spot in the middle of the same angle. I mean, Filthy Animals, I guess, would be the most obvious.
Yeah, well, I didn't get to watch the show. I think I had, as I said, Kevin went to my house and wanted to watch Earl Dotson, the guy, the tackle from Green Bay. He was going to play against him 2 weeks from now. So I watched the football game with Kevin, but I didn't know that was his philosophy. I guess because when I watch the WWF, there's a definitive good and bad. I mean, just when the crowd reaction there is, I'm just when I'm watching on TV. So I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say whether that'll work or not. Apparently it has worked, so I can't say that it won't. But for myself personally, I like to think there's a good guy and a bad guy. I think it's much easier to gosh, I hate to use this word, but it's much easier to have a match or entertain the crowd based on evil versus good.
Yeah, well, crowd reaction.
Yeah.
Speaking of Kevin Green, does he want to wrestle still? Because I mean, Kevin Green.
I think he does, but I think it's funny. He came over as I told you. He just he bought a nice farm actually in Anniston, Alabama, about 50 miles from where he was living in Birmingham, and he's ready to just walk away from it all. It was really kind of I've gotten to be pretty good friends with Kevin, and here he is, there's a guy he spoke to me and said, I'm the last guy from the 85 draft playing, he's 37, he said, Rick, but I've done it all, so, I'm thinking here I am sitting in my living room talking to Kevin Green, and I'm kind of like in the same position, I probably got more sacks than anybody, but I told him, I'm just not ready to go away yet, I still like doing it, that's my problem. So anyway, it was kind of interesting evening.
Jeff, you got anything else?
Yeah, why is Arn Anderson kept off television with interviews?
That's the strangest thing I've ever been around in my life. I think that he was kept off television because when he and I were together, it was always a big time deal, and when that worked too well, that didn't work, if you know what I mean. In other words, it was successful, and then, the powers to be just did not want to see that happen, and I think they felt that Arn, because he couldn't wrestle anymore, was probably a distraction from other guys being able to get as much attention as he had, or as much I'm going to use the word respect, because that's basically what Arn has. Arn has a ton of respect from the people that have watched our sport for a long time, and he's got a classic interview. And with all the TV we produce, it's beyond me why he's not on television, but I've argued that for 5 years. I've argued it from the day. I've actually argued that for 5 years with this company, and they wanted to fire Arn Anderson more than 3 times. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life, The guy's a company guy. I don't say it because everybody knows he's my friend, but he was a gifted wrestler, a very gifted wrestler, but one of the great talkers of all time, in my estimation. So I don't know.
I never understood why, especially during that period when you were having your problems with Bischoff and you were out. And Arn Anderson, they put him on TV, and there was I think it was like a 6-week period where Arn Anderson always drew the highest quarter hour during the interviews. It was doing the soap opera where Benoit and Malenko were trying to get him to form the Horsemen.
That was the look. It put me back. That's why I could not come back here, because I owed it to those guys. Yeah,
and the thing I could never figure out was, okay, if how could there not be a role for that guy, even if it's like, I mean, for years and years, and this is going back a long time, Bobby Heenan was an incredible heat getter for Nick Bockwinkel and for other people in the WWF later as a manager. I mean, why, he had been a wrestler in his day.
Yeah.
Why couldn't Arn Anderson, if it needed to be a heel, if it needed to be a babyface, whatever it was, he knew how to do the interviews. Why not have him do what he could do at ringside and obviously get someone over. If Benoit's a little bit weak on interviews at that point in time, if that's what they thought, and Benoit was a phenomenal wrestler, it was like almost natural.
Let me tell you what I suggested to the company a year and a half ago, maybe it was however long, and where it was, I said, if you guys want to get this guy over, to this day, I would have never had Goldberg talk. I told them, let Arn Anderson be his mentor. Let Arn Anderson walk out on television and say, that only Arn can say, I finally found somebody that could be, my place. Forget about the Four Horsemen. To do it individually like that. To this day, I would never have had Goldberg talk. Can you imagine the phenomenon of ever hearing this guy talk? If Arn always talked for him.
Yeah, and the other part of that is that when the time came, all you had to do is bump Arn Anderson once, and you have a big money program.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I pushed that. I talked to Arn. I said, Arn, that could be an angle that would, you could ride with for 2 or 3 years. Goldberg never talking, because it never happened. People just don't. It just didn't work like that. But I thought it would be a phenomenal deal for Bill, and I went to Bill and told him too, but they didn't. They didn't think that was a good idea. But I think that Arn would have been a great spokesperson for Bill.
Yeah, I think that would have been great on a lot of things. And then when the time came, if the time came for Arn to turn on him, and then Bill was ready to talk, there's so many things you can do.
Yeah, they just didn't want to feature him. It's pure and simple. They didn't want to feature him, and in my estimation, I wish, he has got some of the. We drive up and down the road. He's got some of the greatest promos. They're all just logs. They're sitting back there in the memory bank. He hasn't got a chance to use them. But he would be a tremendous guy to be with anywhere. The guy can talk, and he's entertaining. And he can be, when he doesn't want to be entertaining, he can be a very forceful guy on the microphone. He can go either way with it, which is very unusual.
Let's go to Jerry in Miami. Jerry, you up?
Hi, Rick. How are you?
Fine, sir. How are you?
A while ago, someone recommended to me that I watch your match against Ricky Steamboat at Wrestle War '89, and they said it was the greatest match ever, and you'll love it. And I checked it out, and I definitely wasn't disappointed. It was fantastic.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and I remember before the match, you must have come to the ring literally with about 40 or 50 women.
Yeah, that wasn't my production.
Oh, really? Well, yeah, for the original Godfather there.
I didn't produce that.
Okay. Well, it was good, how they contrasted that to Ricky Steamboat coming in with his family and all that.
That's probably why they did that, yeah.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask you about when they reformed the Horsemen, what happened, what kind of obstacles did you come across? Did they tell you when you wrestle, hold back a little bit, don't break out some of those, like the match against Steamboat was 40 minutes. Do they tell you maybe to hold back, like when you're wrestling Hogan? Because you could easily show up the other wrestler,
No, I think that's probably a misconception. I have the unique. I think if I have anything, I have the ability to enhance and to probably have a match with anybody based around what they do well. And I have to tell you, and I'm saying this very sincerely, I know Dave probably has a problem with this. I really enjoyed working with Hulk Hogan. I wish that if I missed, earlier someone asked about me going up there earlier, I wish I could have been with him in his heyday. I kind of caught the tail end of it. But I've only wrestled a few guys in this business that were over with the crowd, like Hulk Hogan. Steamboat being one of them. Ricky Morton, for a period of time, was over like that. Kerry Von Erich was over like that. Of course, and Hogan was probably the epitome, but God, it was just unbelievable. And I, as I'm saying, I probably caught the tail end of that. I can only imagine what it was like in the 80s. But in 91, when I wrestled him in Oakland and in L.A. and Phoenix and New York, it's not to say that the matches were the kind of matches I had with Ricky Steamboat, but it was actually fun for me. And once he got comfortable with me, which he did actually later on, when Morty came here and trusted me not to do anything that was out of the textbook. We had very entertaining matches, I think. Not classics, but that's part of being able to adapt. That's one of the reasons I probably am still here. Right. And I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I enjoyed some of Hogan's matches, and I especially enjoyed the title matches you had recently. But I even think they could give you a match with you and Hogan, maybe going 30 minutes.
We could do it.
Watch Hogan.
The funny thing is, I've asked. In the last 4 months, I asked him 10 times when to wrestle Hogan on TV. I asked him when to wrestle Bret Hart.
Yeah.
No. The answer was always no. And I kept asking why. I haven't wrestled Hogan on TV in a single match since 95, Dave?
Mm-hmm. I don't remember. I remember there were
in Des Moines, Iowa, in Cedar Rapids at the Clash of Champions.
Yeah, I think there was maybe one or two Nitro matches, but they were like short matches.
I think they were tag matches too.
Or they might have been. Yeah, I remember you and Hogan, and I think there was one. I remember there was one match where you actually got a pin on Hogan on a Nitro when maybe Arn Anderson interfered or something.
Yeah. Yeah, but
I just remember watching
a real short deal. I mean,
but it wasn't like a 15-minute match.
Yeah, I think when I came back in Chapel Hill, they were just wanted me to go the other way, and I said, God, we're here. They said, no, it's in your backyard. You can't do that. And I said, gosh, we got to sell to the national audience. But anyway, I mean, I'm not unhappy with it. Actually, I'm trying to tell you guys, I enjoyed wrestling them.
Right. Rick, it was such an honor to talk to you.
Thank you.
And I just want to tell you, every Space Mountain line is brilliant. Every time you come out.
But what about the longest line I got from Cornette? I have to tell you, that's not mine originally.
The longest line, but when it's...
I got that from Cornette.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. Thanks, Dave.
Okay, you're welcome. Let's go to Wes in Virginia. Wes, how are you?
Hey guys, how's it going? Rick, 2 questions for you. The first one, I was wondering what your personal feelings were on Vince McMahon, and also what impact that he's made on wrestling since he took over in the early 80s. I was just wondering your thoughts on that.
First of all, personally, and I'm going to preface this by saying that I think it's important in every endeavor of life that if you're involved business-wise with somebody or socially, if you spend time with them, you have to judge them on how they treat you. So with saying that, I've got to say that Vince McMahon has treated me better in the wrestling business than anybody ever. And it's hard to believe that. Inclusively, I'm talking about Jim Crockett. Mm-hmm. Because at the end, Jimmy Crockett and people whose name I don't want to mention sold me out big time when the Turk people bought the company. But Vince McMahon, for the year and a half that I was there, it was the most glorious time I ever had. I mean, when you think about it, I got to wrestle Roddy Piper, Hogan, Savage, Bret Hart, and I got to go back to WCW. I mean, I didn't have any downtime. And when he was going to move me in a position where I was not going to be featured as much, he said, hey, if you don't like what I want to do with you, you're more than welcome to go home. And we shook hands and I left. I mean, there was just never any downtime. I had a tremendous experience with him. And in terms of what he's done with the wrestling business, I think that if you watch both shows Monday night, it says it all. I mean, we have just hired 2 of his key people. I understand much to his dismay because Russo and Ferrara are obviously very bright guys that know what they're doing. And, it's unusual. Vince would make a mistake by not having guys like that in their contract. I mean, I don't even know the circumstances, but they're bright guys. They did a lot for him, apparently. And now they're obviously going to help our company. And I did not watch the show last night, but I watched it last week, and the show last week was a lot better. And it really was. I mean, it moved well, and more people are involved, and they're taking advantage of the people that we have under contract, which is something this company has never done, and I thought it was great.
My second question, being from Virginia, I'd have to ask you about Magnum TA. I was watching an old tape I had yesterday with an angle where he ripped up the suit that you gave him on World Championship Wrestling. Now, I just wonder what your thoughts were on him and the tragic accident that he had.
Well, it's funny. I can tell you, I had wrestled Bob Armstrong the night before in Birmingham, Alabama. I had worked for Ron Fuller down there and got off the plane, and I didn't want to get off the plane in Charlotte. The friend ran up to me and said, hear about Magnum. And it was a Monday night, apparently, after Greenville, and I was back then traveling. And, God, to this day, when I see him, I think about how tragic it is. It just, the guy was, he was gifted. He was destined to be probably the world champion. I think he was probably being, from our company standpoint, he was being pushed as the next guy. And, on top of that, he's a good guy. He just lived life. He lived life like I've lived it. He was running, he was driving his Porsche and having a good time. And, it just, it's one of those queer things that happened. I mean, I don't know. Nobody, you look at what's happened in the last couple of days. I mean, Walter Payton, I think everybody knew that was going to happen eventually, but the thing with Payne Stewart, even though Terry was not, Terry didn't die in an accident, it was just one of those things where a guy that was on top of his game, it just happens. I don't know why. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't like to overthink that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It was something that, now you by any chance, Rick, have you read Mick Foley's book yet, by any chance?
No.
Okay, it's number 3 on the New York Times bestseller list.
Is it really?
It really is. It's amazing to me. I mean, they've done, I don't know how much you've seen of the New York show. They've done an incredible job like they always do on projects like this.
I haven't seen it for a while.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that's...
Or the publishing company?
I mean, it's a publishing company, but WWF is pushing the book very, very hard. The other project, which I would bet within like a week or so, whenever the next Billboard charts come in, watching their show last night, their new entrance music record will probably be really high on the charts because, I mean, they pushed that thing really hard last night on television.
Oh, really?
But yeah, he was, Johnny Dark had emailed in and asked what you thought of what Mick Foley had negative things to say about you in the book. And, I mean, the basic gist, and, I mean, he praised you as a wrestler, but, he felt, I guess he was frustrated by when he was in the company and his position and not getting certain breaks and things like that. And, I mean, that was, I think, what, one of the things. There was one thing that he said, and I don't know if you said it, and I remember the line being attributed to Ole Anderson, but in the book he attributed to you, saying that, like, he'll be in a wheelchair when he's 30 or something.
No, actually, it's funny. He did say something derogatory about me in it?
Yeah, it actually, there were a couple of things. As far, it was more as a booker, not getting a bigger push. I mean, definitely nothing as a wrestler. And in the preface, I guess, in the early part, he almost, it's not like apologetically, but he says, like, he mentions that he has a lot of negative stuff on Al Snow, and he sort of says that's his rib. And then he says, there's things like he mentioned things about Watts and Ole, and then he said, Ric Flair's like, one of the greatest wrestlers ever. But, I think he, like, said, but as a booker, I mean, I think that he didn't think that he got a fair push.
Yeah. Well, it really doesn't matter because I just saw him at Brian Pillman's thing, and I think I paid him the kind of respect that, is deserving with that bump he took off the cage. Jeez. But I paid him that kind of respect before. I don't think that anybody that ever books, is ever going to be, if I had something that I could take back in my life, would be ever doing that. Because it's an impossible situation. The only thing I can ever say to anybody, and I can say this to you, and I hope you have a big audience, is that I never pushed myself. In other words, if I pushed myself, it was only into a match to get beat. I never, ever, I use myself as a tool because I was always put in that position of having to get somebody else, which is something that we talked about earlier. And I hate using this kind of terminology, but I was always in the position of having to make somebody else. And, it's funny, and I just don't have it in my heart to go out and explain why, I couldn't push Mick Foley or why, and that must be the same time when Vader, why Vader, there was so much going on politically when Hogan came to the company that there were just astronomical things for me to deal with, and, I wish that there were twice in my life, if I could take a period of time back, because it really took the fun out of business for me. The fun was being able to wrestle at night, during the day, because I'm not the kind of guy that wanted to sit in the office back then and do all that. And if I thought I was creative enough to do something, then I was always checked and rechecked and counter-checked, and it really became a battle. So, I think at one point in time I kind of found myself, because I retired in November, that was something that when I did it, I was sure in my heart that I wasn't coming back. But as it turned out, because they didn't live up to their obligation contractually, and when I called them on it, they made a big deal out of it. I'm talking about when I wrestled Hogan,
retirement match in Detroit.
Yeah, that was a big deal. The guy gives up his career, and I wasn't just any guy doing it, and they needed that because I wasn't a champion. I should have been a champion going into the match.
Yeah.
I mean, black and white. I was supposed to be the
third match, yeah.
Then the match would have made sense. But, I'm not going to get into all that. Anyway, there's just things that went down, and he was with the company at that point in time. And, You know, if he took that shot at me, he probably feels that way. But I don't think if he thinks about it, that he ever saw me pushing myself ahead of the business. In other words, I always use myself. I was glad to do it if I had the chance to demonstrate what I could do in the ring. I always liked to be able to help somebody else, and I did. You know, and that's kind of what I was saying about yes when I should have said no, and instead I said yes. And when they asked me to do that thing in November, I should have said no. You know, I'm not going to retire. Then I would have had, you know, he's not a company guy, right? Then, you know, it never translates the way it's supposed to. So that's kind of like with Fritz von Erich, you know, and all those kids were just great guys. God rest all their souls, you know, when they wanted me to do the thing with Kerry, you know, with the whole NWA didn't want that to go down.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Well, it was just they just didn't have a level of comfort with Kerry because of his, you know, his personal life.
Yeah.
You know, and guys like Geigel and Barnett and Crockett and all those guys didn't really feel like Kerry was going to be the guy to show up the next day and wrestle an hour, you know. And at that point in time, that's what they were in every territory except, well, actually, I wrestled Kerry a bunch of hours everywhere. I mean, it's not just, I didn't mean to say that he couldn't do it. It's just that they wanted a level of comfort that the next day the champion was going to be there on time and be prepared to wrestle whoever they were featuring. And so there was a lot going on. That was Eddie Graham was still living then, you know, and there was a lot going on there politically.
Now, when we go back to, like, say, 1981, when you first got the title from was it Dusty Rhodes was the first time, right?
Yes, 1981.
Yeah. Leading up to that, I mean, how far in advance were you aware of this, and were you going to say a year out, or was it something that?
No, 1 week.
Really?
1 week, yeah. As a matter of fact, and then when I told me, they wouldn't even let me tell my wife to be Beth. They wouldn't. They said, you know, in other words, I was fearful if I told her and brought her to the building, they changed their mind, so I didn't tell her, which got unbelievable. And it caused a lot of problems for me for a while.
Oh, yeah. I mean, all of a sudden, your schedule increases tenfold.
Yeah, well, no, I didn't even know about that. I just meant that I didn't tell her about that night because it meant so much to me. I went and told my mom and dad, who flew and bought their own ticket to come in the building. Unbeknownst to knowing my mom and dad, I couldn't have possibly given that away. But if I'd walked in with Beth and all that, they would have, you know, they would have known that I was something was going on, you know, and that's why I didn't tell her. I mean, I'm sure they would have thought that I told her. And when they laid it out to me, they said, no one in the world can know this prior to, 5 minutes before you go in the ring. So that's what happened.
Were there ever any thoughts as far as, like, prior to 1981, like maybe late 70s, early, you know, before that, of people, like, going, like, you know, you should be the champion, or a period where, because, I mean, I would say from, I don't know, whatever it was, from 75, 76, you were pretty much, at least from in the Carolinas, you were already, you know, one of the top guys, and
yeah, but, you know, in all reality, Dave, I'll just say I was not prepared. I mean, everybody thinks they can be the world champion. Everything if they can travel around and wrestle 370 days or 370 matches a year out of 350 days or whatever it is. It was really. I thought I was going to be the world champion. The first time I ever got hit by Wahoo. You know, I said, gosh, I'm ready for anything in this business. You know, I got to wrestle Wahoo, and you know, I was wrestling Steamboat then and Mulligan, but you know, to wrestle Brody for an hour in Japan, or to wrestle Steve Henson for an hour in Japan, or to go over to New Zealand and wrestle Steve Ricard, you know, who was retired but came back out of retirement, and Mark Lewin, and going to Kuala Lumpur and Bangkok and places I've never been in my life, you know, and wrestle these guys for every 1 hour, or to go into Trinidad. I mean, that story is legendary with I can't think of him, Carlos Colon's partner. You know, we had a full-scale riot.
Victor Javica?
Yeah, Victor. I mean, and it was just, God, it was just brutal. I mean, it was all stuff I don't regret any of it, but when I got on the plane the first day, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. My first match after I left Kansas City, I got off the plane in Tampa, drove to Nova in Florida, and I wrestled Charlie Cook for an hour.
Now, when 83 came and you lost the title for the first time, when you lost it to Harley in St. Louis, was it pretty much at that time to set up Starrcade, or did No,
it was not at all. As a matter of fact, Harley was already entertaining the idea of going to New York. And to this day, I respect Harley, and I'll say it publicly. Harley was in New York the day before Starrcade. And only out of respect for me and out of his allegiance to the business at that point in time did he even come to Greensboro.
Really?
They gave him $25,000. That was nothing back then.
Mm-hmm.
And $25,000 plus his payoff, whatever that was.
Yeah.
Let's say it's another $25,000. He got $50,000. And Harley knew at that time that it was at the end. So to pay me that compliment, to show up, number one, and Crockett, of course, had done the first, not pay-per-view at that time, but what was it called, Dave?
The big closed circuit show.
Yeah, the closed circuit, and they had everybody tied in at Savannah, Georgia, Charleston, Columbia, Richmond, Norfolk, and of all things, it was the worst weather, storm-wise, that the Carolinas had experienced in about 5 years. It snowed that day. So it really killed the whole concept, but Greensboro and Charlotte, I mean, collectively did over $1 million, which at that time was big money.
No, it was big.
They probably would have done, $2.5 million.
Yeah,
but with a snowstorm in the Carolinas, it just fell down.
Yeah, that was probably the biggest thing, because that just preceded, I guess WrestleMania was about a year and a half later. So
yeah, exactly. It's nothing like WrestleMania, but the difference between WrestleMania and Crockett can pay the bills.
Yeah.
At the end of WrestleMania, they're having some problems.
Yeah.
But the WrestleMania concept was huge. Don't misunderstand me. I think it was just a great deal. I'm not knocking that. I just that Crockett, put a lot of time and thought in that, and we got killed because of the weather. To this day, if you get an inch of snow down here, it just closes you down. They're not prepared for it.
Now this is from Trent Walters, and I know he's from Edmonton, Canada, and he mentions that his favorite program was you and Ricky Steamboat. The Chicago pay-per-view match, which I remember very well, was his personal favorite match that he has shown to more wrestlers than any other match. Is an example of what a perfect wrestling match should look like. And he wanted to know who your favorite guys to do programs with, and also in the late 80s in Alberta, Owen Hart was gaining a reputation as being one of the better workers around, and the family numerous times said that they wanted, this is when you would have been NWA champion, they wanted to bring you up to Calgary to wrestle Owen, and did that ever come close to happening?
No.
Did it ever,
no, they were not doing business with Stu Hart at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't up to me. I went where they told me to go. For some reason, Bob Geigel and Stu Hart, or the NWA and Stu, had a falling out, which I'm not, to this day, I'm not privileged to know what happened, but, I worked for Barnett and Bob Geigel, and where they laid my schedule out, and I went where they went, and there was something that, I think they were mad because they brought Bob Winkle in and recognized him as the world champion, from the AWA, and whether that happened because of Vern and Stu, I really don't know, but every time I was supposed to go, it never came off.
Yeah, I know that. I know Stu had a problem with Dusty as champion because how Stu's idea of what a world champion should be.
Exactly.
So I think that maybe when Dusty became champion, he brought in Bockwinkel instead because Bockwinkel more fit his ideal, and that's where it all happened. I'm not really sure, but I know that it was something to do with Dusty. We've got to go to a break. We're going to come back and take a phone calls right after this.
Dave,
Rick?
Dave,
yes.
I've got to run.
Okay.
I told the producer earlier, I've got to run. I've got to pick up my daughter.
Okay.
I love you guys. You want to call me tomorrow night?
If you want to, let's see.
I'll be here. I want to finish this up. If you've got callers that want to call, you call me tomorrow night. I'll be here from the same time frame, but I won't have to get off.
Okay, no problem.
If it's good enough to make a 2-day deal, I'm here. I'm available.
Okay, yeah. Tell them we'll set the thing. We have Don Callis booked, so we can book Don Callis early and get Rick in at the end, or whatever's easier for Rick.
Okay, man.
All right. Thank you very much, Rick.
Dave.
Okay.